Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Magic Bricks webinar, our endeavor to empower you with insights on the Indian real estate market. The topic of today's session is how you can be responsible for your seismic safety. Our guest speaker today is Nateri Kalidas. He is the founder director, Institute for Solid Waste Research and Ecological Balance. A technocrat scientist with over 2 decades of experience in cement chemistry and concrete technology, Kalidas has worked with German companies to promote building material technologies in India. He has co-authored a textbook, Fly Ash for Sustainable Development. His other laurels include receiving CanMet ACI International Award for outstanding contributions in the area of fly ash in bricks and concrete in India. We have Jayashree Kurup, who is Head Content and Research with Magic Bricks as a co-speaker with us. She is a business journalist with over 2 decades of experience in working with print, online, and electronic mediums with the Times of India, the Economic Times, and the Financial Express. She specializes in analyzing real estate data to come up with usable solutions to users. She works with consumers to provide advice on using available information to make wise investment decisions. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our speakers. Over to you, Jayashree.
Thank you, Aradhana. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Magic Bricks webinar series. This time we are bringing a subject that is very close to the heart of a lot of people in the light of the two Nepal earthquakes that we have witnessed in the recent past. While many experts have said that Indian cities may not be safe, our structures safe, and we have been getting a stream of queries from consumers asking how they can be responsible for their own seismic safety, we thought it is best to start a series of dialogues with many experts who would be able to address your concerns and shed light on various aspects about the industry and our Indian cities. A lot remains to be done. India is a developing nation. Housing and the built environment has been not been an area of concern or focus for a lot of governance, and therefore there are many gaps in what should be done and what is being done. However, dialogue is the best way to start a process of change, and we thought that as the market leaders in the real estate space, we would like to ensure that consumer queries are addressed, that consumers at least have a forum to go to where they can express their concerns and get experts to address it. Today we've got Mr. N. Kalidas. Kalidas is a materials expert, and his knowledge about the aggregates and the components that go into the construction process equips him to at least be able to tell you what are the things that you should look for when you become a buyer, you are a user, and so on. All the answers may not be available, but at least we can start the dialogue. Over to you, Kalidas.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kalidas. Being the material scientist in cement and concrete technology, we also deal with structural issues in order to integrate the subject. And nowadays we are focusing more on making the structures with more strength and more soundness and more durability, by which the safety factors would improve. So that is how I am positioned today in this studio. And I try to analyze your queries and try to address your concerns. Basically, to make a earthquake resistant structure, the caudal parameters have given a certain basic parameters. The dwelling unit should be a framed structure. When a framed structure is mentioned, it will act as a integrated member, means the beam, the column, the floor, the slab, everything is integrated, by which it can tilt with to the seismic impact, but it will not collapse. That is one basic recommendation. Then it should contain resisting elements such as shear walls. If anybody say, I have built a earthquake resistance building without a shear wall, then it should not be accepted. More so in the high critical zones like Delhi. So shear wall is enhancing the security of the structure, because a shear wall is a reinforced concrete wall which is integrated to the bottom beam as well as the roof beam. So whenever there is an earthquake taking place, the wall will not collapse. The wall is becoming part of the frame, so the whole structure has to tilt. This is the basic criteria. And any other element in the construction should be tied together so as to act as a integrated unit. There should not be an independent structural unit, because you can put furniture or so many other elements are there in a house. They are all independent units, but none of the structural units should be singular. Because you need a separation, you cannot build a wall in a seismic prone building. That such a wall will prove fatal to whenever there is an earthquake. So anything that is done in a building should be integrated with the rest of the structure. And needless to emphasize that the foundation should be sound enough, commensurate to soil condition. Without proper analysis of the soil, its bearing capacity, the structure cannot be designed, because the tremor takes place from the earth and it travels to the structure. So if the wall is, if the soil is weak, the whole building can settle in, and that is where the impact loads come on to the structure. The point here is, a structure is built for safety factors, 1:3, 1:4. These are all safety factors on the design aspect, but when an impact load comes on the structure due to earthquake, these safety factors are availed to the brim. So in an earthquake prone structure, the safety factors have to be enlarged, and the soundness of the execution should be more diligent. So you can see here, this is a framed structure. Because of the earthquake, it has got into two independent blocks, but the whole unit is behaving independently. You can see here, next one, yeah. Here, the reinforcement was not properly done. So thereby, instead of acting as a monolithic frame, the column has given way at the bottom. So this type of things would prove fatal whenever there is earthquake. So apart from selection of material, utilization of the material and placement of it requires more attention and more expertise. You can see next, this is how a building looks like in a earthquake prone area. There are no walls. The walls are also designed with reinforcement. So whenever a slab and beam is going to be cast, first of all the walls are cast and then the beam and slab would be cast, so that the whole thing becomes integral part. Next. Here is a shear wall with reinforcement, and it can resist the seismic impacts comfortably. Here is another retention wall. Because of its because it is a reinforced wall, despite earthquake, the wall has cracked, but it has not collapsed. So this is the comfort of having a shear wall with reinforcement. And we wish there should not be collapse and casualties. But if there is an earthquake happens, the debris that takes place can be recycled in order to execute structure, which this is what we are now offering to the Nepal region. We want to say that the future buildings should be having shear walls. For constructing shear wall, you need lot of aggregate. The aggregate need not be taken from the natural sources. You can use the debris and recycle it as a recycled aggregate. So this is how the things can be integrated in order to do something for the earthquake-prone regions. Now I welcome questions from the spectators.
Before we start, maybe there are a couple of queries that we would like to take this discussion a little forward. If the rubble could be converted into aggregates, why haven't we done it so far, and what does it require? When you say that the rubble can be reused, what does that mean?
Basically, the rubble is consisting of two constituents. One is brick, the other is concrete. Brick as aggregate is a weak product. More so, if the bricks are not properly baked, they are not a good aggregate. Then you have to overcome the weakness of the brick by having a good concrete. Today, we have opportunities to develop concretes with a strength as high as 800, 900 kg strength per square centimeter, as against 200, 250 kg of concrete what we are normally putting in the conventional buildings. So by increasing the concrete strength, you can compensate the weakness of brick. So this has opened up opportunity to use brick also as an aggregate. And concrete is the best aggregate because it is already a cementitious material. You have today a good amount of machines available to break the concrete, which was not the case scenario earlier. And the energy cost. Earlier the aggregate was of low cost, so there is no need to waste energy and break the aggregate. But today with the spiraling cost of natural aggregates and pressure on natural minerals, there is a dire need to recycle the concrete, and such concrete can give good bonding with cement, and a sound concrete with good impermeability can be developed.
Just one more question. If rubble can be used to can be reused, and so that we're not dumping malba everywhere, is this true in even non-earthquake zones? Should we reuse the construction material when buildings or cities are being rebuilt?
Yes, everywhere. This is an opportunity, and in the technology today, and one should conserve the natural material. Today we are all the hillocks are vanishing to meet the requirement of aggregate to the concrete. So that has to be slowed down. The only alternative nowadays we have good buildings rehabilitation or modernization, because of which buildings are deliberately taken out. So instead of wasting those materials, that can be recycled with proper design of the concrete. The design of concrete was earlier we were talking concrete means 1 to 4, 1 to 1.5, only a couple of mixed designs. Today that is not the case. We can develop a concrete with least cement, good amount of fly ash, and still offer a strength of 500 kg to 900 kg. So this is the opportunity with which the scope to recycle the aggregate has brightened up, and it can be practiced all through the India.
So that is a big opportunity for cities to actually manage their waste, about a large percentage of which is the construction materials. If that can be reused, cities should be, our Swachh Bharat mission should also be benefited by this. Aradhana, we can now take questions.
Thanks for sharing this insightful presentation with us. Let's quickly take up the questions now. I would request Jayashree to read out the questions and their answers so that all our users may listen to the insight.
Sure. Our first question, I think we have to. Our first question, it comes from Sujata Shankaran. how to ensure that this can be implemented in gated communities. Um, I think what Sujata means is that when we are talking about how to ensure your safety, earthquake resistance, if you're living in a gated community, in community living, how will the individual ensure? What is the onus on the individual, or does it have to be at the community level? And if it is at the community level, what can be done? I think more or less what she's asking is retrofitting possible? If you what are the steps? Maybe assessment, maybe engagement at the community level. What can be done?
When it is a community, you have to take the whole community into confidence in order to progress with any repair or retrofitting.
How do you know that you need retrofitting of your structure? What is retrofitting, and how do you assess for retrofitting?
You see, till now we have been accepting whatever builder says, whatever engineers say. Because of the issue now, the earthquakes are frequently coming and their intensity is increasing. Today, first of all, a good amount of structural engineers have to develop themselves into earthquake resistant structural engineers, and they have to understand the codes, they have to digest the recommendations, and they have to come out with manuals, check parameters, check mechanisms to analyze the existing structures. So such guys can help persons like Sujata, and they can come to your place, analyze your structure on various parameters, and recommend to you what type of whether, first of all, whether is it safe or not. If it is not safe, what type of retrofitting or strengthening mechanisms have to be adopted in order to make the structure relatively more safer.
Sujata, a little earlier we were talking to Mr. Kalidas, and one of the things that we discussed was while we are waiting for manuals to be created, while we are waiting for the systems to come into place, is there something that we can do? And certainly there are many things that he suggests. One is that there are many consulting engineers. There are who are practicing consulting engineers. If as a community you decide that you want to check whether you are seismically safe, you can go to expert organizations and get your buildings verified. Even your builder, if you bought it from a good reputed builder, you can actually go back to the builder and say, look, I am concerned and we are concerned and we'd like to do a assessment, and it can be the assessment can be made. The next step for you is that it has to be you have to verify from the experts whether these parameters have been met. And little later in the discussion, we will actually tell you what are the parameters that you should be able to assess, so that you know what to look for. As laypersons, maybe we don't know what we should look for, but there are many things, there are certain kind of checklist. We'll put up the checklist a little later so that you'll be able to figure out what you should be checking. The third thing is that academic institutions like the IITs, like the regional engineering colleges, they have experts within them, and after you've got it assessed from consulting engineers or something like that, if you still feel that you would like one more level of comfort, it is a very good idea to approach the academic institutions and ask them whether everything that you found out is actually what you should be looking for. So the onus is on you. Today it is not a structured, earthquake safety is not something that is mandatory today. Many builders are offering it. The National Building Code has it, has the provisions for it. Many building bylaws have it, but the assessment is not maybe complete yet, and that is where you as a consumer can take the initiative. Let's go on to the next question. We've got Surendra Malda here, who says there are many houses, buildings which are not earthquake proof. I want to know, is there any agency or organization which can be contacted to make them earthquake resistant? While nothing can survive a very large earthquake. The earthquake resistance is in terms of degrees, but there are many things that you can do right. Maybe you can address that, Mr. Kalidas.
Yeah. The first thing is, none of our structural engineering courses have paid due attention to the earthquake resistance issues commensurate to the magnitude of problem that is existing today. Thereby, the parameters and the approach to the earthquake resistant issues was peripherally addressed, and today is a scenario where you have to address them in length and breadth. For this, I give certain recommendations. Number one, the structure, the builder, the property seller should develop a data. So far, that data is not there. What type of soil condition in which he has built the structure, and after that, what type of foundations. The structural engineer cannot come and dig the foundation. So he should be provided with the data of soil condition and the foundation details. Then the structural engineer can judge whether is it sufficient to meet the resistance requirement on a scale of 1:10. Then he may say it is 5, it is 6, or it is 7. Second aspect is the steel to concrete ratio. As I already mentioned in the introductory para, earthquake resistance requires more ductility, resistance to brittleness. So in earthquake prone area, the steel ratio has to be increased in order to make the beam columns more ductile. Have we attended to this need? This is one important issue all the builders should check, and all the structural engineers, whoever is providing the designs to the builder, should address this parameter in the earthquake point of view. But many cases, what is happening, the designs are provided under normal conditions without providing additional care to the requirements of the earthquake. So, and in places like Delhi, which are in serious earthquake prone zones, if somebody say I have the building which is safe without a shear wall, I don't accept it. In any building, the collapse of the wall contributes for maximum casualty. So most of the earthquake resistant structures basically recommend that there should not be independent element. Whatever element is there, it should be more ductile, and it has to be integrated. So this is only possible when you have a shear wall in the structure. So the dwellers should insist that I need to have the shear wall if I want to have my structure earthquake resistant. And the builders also should attend on that. And to this extent, the engineering colleges, IITs, NICMAR, these people have to now come out with a sort of manuals, earthquake resistant check parameters and mechanisms. Such manuals have to be propagated, and many chartered engineers have to equip themselves to understand, digest the manual and to address it. And thereby the consumers can approach these experts. Then there will be a more tangible and diligent recommendation emerges out of these institutes to address the concerns of the consumer.
At Magic Bricks, we believe that where there are gaps in the market, if we can step in as a media house and use our reach to try and find, at least bring the information to you. One of the things that we've done post the earthquake and the number of queries that we've received on the concerns that individuals have been raising, one of the things that we've done is we've created a site, a microsite for you on earthquake. How safe are we from earthquakes, and how to ensure your own safety during an earthquake. Now, in this microsite, we have been talking to various experts at the city levels, at developers and so on, one of the things that we've done is we've asked developers who have been advertising that their buildings are earthquake proof, we've asked them to actually spell out what are the features that they have incorporated, which gives them the confidence to say that they are safe during an earthquake. These are videos which we have uploaded on our site. We will be uploading further videos, and in addition to what we've done, we'll take Mr. Kalidas's views that there should be checklists, and we will reach out to experts across the country and across the world on what are the elements of structural safety that should be incorporated, and we'll put them up. So do keep visiting our section, and we assure you that there will be a lot more updates. Today's discussion is to start a dialogue and keep the dialogue going, because as consumers, when you demand more, that's when the industry responds. Because in our country, unfortunately, it is a response mechanism rather than a diagnostic mechanism before problems happen. But even today, the problems have not happened. It's happened in our neighboring country. It's not happened in our own country right now, in our metropolises. And we would like to ensure that, God forbid, if there is an earthquake anywhere in the Indian cities, we want people to be safe as it is possible to be. And that's why this dialogue has begun. Let's go on to the next question. There is Samir who says, could you please tell at what stage of development we can ask for structural safety certificate? Recently, I have booked a flat at Noida Extension in UP, and its construction is going on. To whom should I approach to get such a certificate?
First of all, you approach the structural engineering consultant or structural engineering departments in IITs and engineering colleges. What parameters that a structure has to comply with to be a earthquake resistant structure, and with that checklist you go to the builder and ask him whether his structure is complying with all these parameters. This is one way of doing things. The other way of doing things is you have to insist the builder right from beginning, before he commences the work, that if at all you have to buy the building, it has to be earthquake resistant building. For that, you tell him your foundation should be like that, your shear walls should not be with the brick, it should be shear wall, and the steel ratio should be higher than conventional approach. And the concrete, one more important point I tell you, if you put more reinforcement and put conventional concrete, this reinforcement will corrode within 15-20 years. Then all the purpose of rendering a earthquake resistant structure is vetoed. A corroded steel is more dangerous than a brick wall. So when you are using more steel, you should use a corrosion resistant concrete, which is possible with blended cement concretes and less water ratio concretes today. So this is another dimension which the consumer should know, and the structural engineer has to pay attention. So when all these parameters have been insisted from the builder right in the beginning and tallied with a structural engineer's recommendation, then the consumer can conclude that whether he is going to buy a good property which is resistant for earthquake or not. After progress of the building, nobody can do anything with reference to improvements on the earthquake. Then it proves to be very costly.
Samir, to put that in a nutshell, there are certain things that you should go for, and there is a checklist that Kalidas is recommending. Do keep engaged with us. We'll get the checklist out of him towards the end of the session. With that checklist, we will also go to the educational institutions and the academic institutions that he has mentioned, where the experts should be able to put together their recommendations on what are the checklists, what are the elements of the checklist that you as a consumer should have. Now, you cannot determine what the builder is building, because clearly you have a budget in hand. You have to go with what's happening in the market. But when there are more and more consumers asking for the right things and asking the right questions, the idea is that the market will move, and the market will move towards in the right direction. Now, you are saying, when should you ask for a structural safety certificate? You're clearly, what Kalidas feels is at the very beginning, when you are putting your money in, you should start demanding that the structure that you have invested in is something that has a structural safety certificate. Once the building is complete is when the safety certificate is issued, but you have to plan for it from the time you're laying your foundations, from the time you're testing the soil for the structure. And if you're talking about Noida extension, remember that you're talking about alluvial soil. Alluvial soil has its own properties, and every type of soil has its own properties, and that is what is assessed when you're looking at what type of foundations you have to go for. Mr. Kalidas, would you like to talk about the different types of foundations and the soils that it goes for?
Yeah, I am not a soil expert, but to the best of my knowledge, I can tell you, for example, black cotton soils are bad soils for foundations because they shrink and expand, causing stresses to the foundation. So any foundation that is put in black cotton soil is not ideal. So what is to be done? First of all, the soil stabilization has to be developed, and commensurate to these stresses, the structural concrete has to be strengthened more together with incorporation of more steel. This is one dimension I am talking about, the soil condition.
What about alluvial soil?
Second point is soil condition ke alawa, based on its texture, the bearing capacity is important. A soil with a low bearing capacity needs a more deep foundation. So this many structures, I tell you, they take peripherally the samples. There are parameters how to collect the soil sample, at which depth it has to be collected, and it has to be studied for its shear, for its compaction values, and based on which the foundation designs are decided. But many places this is done peripherally. When there are no earthquakes in those regions, because of the safety factors, those structures are caught free. But when these design parameters are not strictly followed, when there is an earthquake, there the safety issue comes, and these structures fail at the safety factors. So earthquake resistant structures should check the safety parameter and magnitude of the safety parameters, keeping the impact loads that is falling on the structure because of the earthquake. This analysis, infinite analysis, has to be done by all concerned departments, including structural engineers, and this is where a new set of guidelines have to be emerged. I am sure the present guidelines are only peripheral. New in-depth guidelines have to be emerged, and it has to be made available to all consumers and publicized in a way that every consumer should ask 1 to 10 parameters from a builder. Then the builder is automatically expected to take care of those 10 parameters. Then automatically the structure becomes sound for seismic effects.
Absolutely. Now, Valjeet is asking, what authority issues such a certificate? What is the procedure to get the structural safety certificate? Valjeet, as Kalidas told us a little while ago, currently the building, when a building is passed, there are certain mandatory conditions. For instance, it's in the building bylaws. It has to conform to the bylaws. The bylaws are synced with the National Building Code, which is a very, very detailed document talking about structural safety. We will be bringing the Vice Chairman of the National Building Code, Mr. V. Suresh, on a discussion a little later in the month. And we hope you come back to us and ask these questions. But the thing is that it is all recommendatory. The mandatory issues are that you have to conform to building bylaws, and the certificates are issued on your conformation to the building bylaws. Other than that, for your own safety and comfort, what we are recommending, what Dr. Kalidas has recommended, is that we should be looking at independent structural evaluation, so that you know whether the certificates that have been issued, it's like a counter check to those.
I amplify Jayashree's analysis. Today we have building bylaws, but no structure is evaluated on the seismic resistance point of view, and no parameters are given. I put in this way: when a building occupancy certificate is given by municipal authority, can they say that we checked this building and it is seismically safe, it is safe against seismic impacts? Why not a clause be there? To have such clause, the building inspector should be competent enough to evaluate the structure. So this is where a integrated, holistic check mechanism has to be evolved, right from faculty through departments up to builders and then to the consumers.
Now we've got Sunil, who says how to ensure whether the certificate is authentic, correct or not. In a situation where we've seen a large amount of corruption, or we've seen it's been a opaque area. So what Sunil says is, if I get a certificate, how do I ensure that this is authentic? Sunil, two things. One is that when the building authorities are giving a certificate, there is some amount of testing that happens, some amount of checks, and that is the first filter. The second filter that again we are saying is, get an independent valuation assessment done, so that you have the comfort that whatever you've bought is actually conforming to whatever has been promised to you. The third is that in the absence of a checklist, we will work hard to ensure that there are checklists that consumers should have, which you can take to the developers and the authorities and the experts, so that you know what you should be looking for. You are not the expert, but if you have a checklist, at least you can check out on the checklist. Kalida.
In addition to Jayashree, the builder should be insisted to give a affidavit-like thing, because today the builder is scot-free because various agencies are certifying, and he says such and such agency has certified. I only built this thing. But it is the responsibility of the builder to ensure that all the safety factors and all the engineering values have been invoked in the construction, and when he has to certify it in the form of an affidavit, automatically he takes more diligent steps to ensure that all parameters are placed in properly. So how far I'm sure CREDI, all these people may not fall in line to this recommendation, but without accountability, somewhere I read in a foreign country, if a building collapses, the builder is hanged. Can we expect such mechanism in India? We throw the blame on various 10 other agencies. Ultimately, who are these agencies? Why not the builder take care of these agencies right at the conceptual designing and construction level? So unless such accountability comes, these loopholes do remain. So I suggest Times of India to take up this issue strongly. I would actually step in here and say that we have been talking to a large number of people from the builder community. The fact is that they're seized of the problems, and I think I would look at it as an there has been some amount of information that has percolated to the builder community. When we spoke to the president of CREDI, one of the things that he said is that they are in certain cities, in cities with high seismic zones, they have instructed all CREDI members that they should build according to seismic safety, and there are certain basic standards that they are conforming to. The issue again remains that normally one would go with what is
what is mandated. And when the pressure grows, and in the light of the magnitude of the earthquakes that have come, the consumer safety is of prime importance, and I don't think the builders are unaware of it. There are many builders. The fact that many builders are advertising that we are seismically safe, what you need is a measure of counter checking the claims of the builders. But the fact is that the entire community is seized of the problems and is working towards it. Let's go to the next question. We have Girish Sharma of Ahmedabad. I'm in confusion to purchase a flat or not, as the recent case of earthquake has threatened me. Suppose I have a flat in a multi-story apartment on the 4th floor, and by nature, if it is destroyed, then how can the claim, and to whom that the 4th floor was mine, as presently there is no existence, and who will bear the loss? Girish is raising a very pertinent issue. While everybody talks about once the disaster strikes, and how can I be safe and so on, Girish is making a much larger issue. How can I prepare? How can I ensure that I'm protected if earthquake strikes? It's and I think Kalidas will be able to address this issue.
This is to be this is to be basically addressed by the bylaws of the constructions, building bylaws. They are separate to independent house, they are separate to apartments, they are separate to community dwellings. When a community dwelling is offered, the property ownership, the land ownership, all these corridors, common properties, all these are defined. So together with these definitions, some guidelines have to be provided in the eventuality of an earthquake, in the eventuality of something fallen. The community has to own it as a common problem and lend the help. It is a 2nd floor wall has collapsed, doesn't mean that the dweller of the 2nd floor only should attend it, because in the process of such collapse, the impact of the fall must have been transferred to a column or beam in the ground floor or somewhere else. So the investigation has to be done integratedly to the whole structure, and which cannot be done by second floor dweller.
However, if you have a claim, Girish, if you when you take an insurance for your house, one of the things that you should ensure is that you do put seismic safety as one of the terms and conditions, and that the building that you occupy should conform to all the requirements. It's not enough to just take a claim against earthquakes. It is important that you understand what that means and read through the fine print and ensure that your building and your structure conforms to those, so that in case you have a damaged property, you can access your claims.
Yes, the risk cover note should be enlisted. Burglary, fire, in addition to all these, also it should be covered with damage due to earthquake. So unless that is covered, the insurance company will not attend to compensate you.
Right. Devashish wants to know, in fact, I think we've got 2 questions from Bangalore, asking whether Bangalore is safe of earthquakes. Essentially, I think people are talking about different cities, and am I safe if I'm in Bangalore? Am I as much at risk as in, say, Delhi or Mumbai in the case of Bangalore?
You see, to address directly, southern states are relatively more safe against earthquakes comparing to the northern and western states. However, to have a direct answer for yourself, you can get into the website where the zones, the whole India is divided under 4 zones. So you check in the map in which zone you are in. Zone 1 is absolutely safe. Zone 4 is more intensity. So if you identify Bangalore, I am sure it must be falling within zone 1 or 2, not even 3. That means it is it is more safe with reference to seismic impacts?
Devashish, this normally comes because cities which are on fault lines, like Delhi, Gurgaon, and so on, lie on fault lines, and therefore, when there is a tectonic movement, these cities are more at risk. That is why they come into zone 4. When you look at cities in the west, there is another fault line running there, and if you remember, western cities such as Bhuj, Latur, these are all major earthquakes that affected these areas. So therefore, the zone they are in a higher zone. Southern states, Peninsular India is relatively safer. However, if you go to the National Disaster Management Authority's website, there is a disaster map of India, and it tells you each city what disasters you are prone to and what zone you fall in. Maybe the southern cities are safer from earthquakes, but there may be, certain cities on the east coast are prone to cyclones and other disasters from the sea. So you see, you map the how disaster prone a city is according to the conditions of that area. However, today we are addressing seismic safety. We'll go on to the next question. I have a flat in a housing project which is G+9. The walls are not of good quality. Even a single press leads to plaster coming out. Can I ask the builder for structure earthquake resistant certificate? Is it mandatory for a builder to get these certificates? Karan from Alvar asks. Karan, a builder has to get a lot of certificates. There are many certificates that a builder has to get before he can get that final occupation certificate. Recently, it came to light that cities like Gurgaon, it was not fully mentioned what are the terms on which a completion certificate is issued, and later in the day we are going to put up a checklist for you on what determines completion according to the Gurgaon bylaws. Now these are city bylaws, and that is what the certificates are based on. However, there is another issue that you are talking about here. You're saying that the plaster comes off even if you knock a nail into the wall, for instance, the plaster comes off. Kalidas, when the wall, as most people understand it, the wall is the brick that lends the structural safety, and the rest of it is finishing. Would you like to talk about how important it is to have good plastering, and does it impact the safety of the building?
Of course. In a wall, say 50% of safety is rendered by the mortar joints of the brick. The plaster gives the buttressing effect, means enhancing the integration of the independent bricks. Thereby, the whole wall acts as a singular member. Nevertheless, in seismic point of view, a brick wall is always a vulnerable element because it is only a curtain wall in a framed structure. It is never acting in integration with the top beam and bottom beam. Now coming to your point, having field of plaster, so it is desirable to have a sound plastering on that. Since your structure is in the seismic zone, before doing that, get a mesh, a structural reinforcement this thing.
It's like a wire mesh that you can use to reinforce.
But not only wire, to render more strength to the wall in the case of earthquake, you have to use a certain amount of rod dia, say 6 mm or 8 mm. The structural engineer will recommend it, and such mesh, this thing has to be tagged to the reinforcement of the roof beam as well as reinforcement of the floor. Then only it is integrated with the roof and floor. Over that you can do the plastering with shotcrete. Nowadays you have various plastering techniques. Then your whole wall behaves in integration with the roof and floor, preventing the disaster during earthquake.
If you understand, one of the, it is not the earthquake that kills people. It is the disaster strikes when the structures collapse. And one of the things that Mr. Kalidas is actually recommending is that if you have a structure that behaves as a composite unit during an earthquake, then the entire structure moves together during the shaking of during an earthquake and does not implode, does not fall inward and damage the people who are in the building. When you are replastering your structure, since you have weak plastering, and when you are replastering, what you're actually doing is you're actually using that mesh to pin the roof and the floor and the walls together, so that in case there is an earthquake, in the event of an earthquake, the entire structure does not collapse.
It acts like a shear wall.
It acts like a shear wall. Now, you may not be able to insist on a shear wall in a structure that's already complete, but what you can do is you can define what are the elements of the shear wall that lends it safety, and you're trying to replicate that in the existing wall.
Correct.
But if your plaster is weak, what Mr. Kalidas is saying is you have to get it assessed, you have to ensure that the plastering is redone, but while you're getting it redone, also ensure seismic safety by putting the wire mesh and linking it to your roof and your floor. And that is in your hands.
Absolutely.
Now, Pratik from Bangalore has asked, can anyone tell me whether cities of South India are safe from earthquake or not? I think we've addressed that. What can we do to protect our house from it? We have, through this entire conversation, we have been talking about how you can be responsible for your own safety. You can get your building assessed. You can use a checklist that we will be shortly putting up. And then you can also, in case you have certain weak elements, like maybe weak plastering and so on, how you can reinforce that. Let's go on to the next question. We have a question from Arun Srivastava from New Delhi, who's asking, in advertisements, every builder claims that their project is earthquake resistant. How can a layman with no knowledge of civil, mechanical, electrical and construction material know that his flat is as per engineering standards, especially soil testing and earthquake resistant structure as advised by structural engineers? Most of the builders pay attention for final finishing only, not only on the safety aspects of the building, even though Delhi falls in Zone 4. Arun, like I mentioned a little while ago, while we would like to think that it's only the users who are concerned, I think it is a little unfair for us to say that all builders are not concerned. I think a lot of builders are concerned, and the very fact that they put it up in the advertisement means that there are certain elements that they're incorporating. However, we will provide you with a checklist that allows you to understand what are the elements you should be checking. Now, since they are already advertising that they are earthquake proof, I think what you should do is you should be asking the right questions to get the right answers, and wherever possible, doing the fixes. Kalidas.
Insist the builder what precautions that he has taken on earthquake point of view. How he is claiming that the building is earthquake resistant, and whatever parameters he provides, take it to the structural engineer or structural engineering department of academic institutes, and counter check whether the parameters provided by the builder are meeting with the bylaws or the codes. That is how you can make sure that the builder has complied or not.
We've got a question from Mohini Mehendirata, who says, I have a question for Mr. Kalidas. How inevitable is the disaster caused by earthquake if the buildings adhere to building codes? Does it just minimize the risk, or are there advanced technologies that will help protect my flat?
As I told you right from beginning, adherence to the building code is not sufficient. The building code, in addition to building code, the earthquake resistance code parameters should be equally followed. Basically, many of these structures are not having shear walls. Any earthquake resistant structure without a shear wall cannot say that it is the structure to resist earthquake. So insist that shear walls should be built in all the buildings which are positioned in the earthquake prone zones.
And where there is no shear wall, Mr. Kalidas has told you how you can pin the your wire meshes to the roof and the floor, so that you are actually duplicating the effect of the shear wall, so that the individual elements do not crumble during an earthquake. Let's take the last question here. We have a query from Kanika Ioni, who says, after experiencing an earthquake, what are the steps to check for the apartment for safety? Very critical issue. We haven't addressed this. Many buildings across the NCR or across the country were badly shaken during the Nepal earthquake. If you were in areas of Bihar, West Bengal, and so on, you may even have had cracks in your walls. Correct. What should you do now that you're not going to leave the building because an earthquake happened and there are cracks? Is it sufficient to just fix the cracks, or is there something more that you have to do?
If you want safety, my recommendation is remove the walls and execute shear walls. If you want to save money, you have to repair. But just by repairing, you are only getting the satisfaction, but not the security.
So if your building has developed cracks during an earthquake, get a structural engineer to check out the building. If you stay in a complex with multiple apartments, all of you are impacted. Even if 2 apartments have developed cracks, all of you are impacted. It is important that you as a community get a structural assessment of the entire building. Go with the recommendations of your structural engineer and retrofit according to a lot of things that Mr. Kalidas has been talking about, in addition to that are available in the market. In addition to that, it is important that you understand what has been, if it is a plaster, the crack is in the plaster, that is something that you should be able to fix. But if there is a structural damage, then that requires a more serious attention, and that is what you should be doing by using the.
And outrightly, for the benefit of all the consumers, let me submit. In any earthquake-prone structure, whenever there is a high impact of earthquake, the first element that gets damaged is the wall, and the first casualty that results because of the fall of the wall. So all these seismic resistant structures should have shear walls, for which nowadays good amount of technology is available, which can make the wall strong as well as resistant against corrosion, and that only can save the casualties, that only can render absolute security against earthquake impacts.
Okay. And the last question of the day from Arul Teja, who has asked a question that we haven't asked before. Recently, I heard about seismic dampers. Is this technology available in India?
I never heard about that.
Arul, I don't think we have
knowledge of this.
We have knowledge about this, and we will definitely take your query to some of the seismic experts in the country. And if we do have it, we will post the answers on our forum, which is openhouse.magicbricks.com. Keep watching our earthquake coverage, and keep the questions coming. We'll ensure that we have more and more experts coming and answering your queries. Thank you so much for participating. Over to you, Aradhana.
Thank you all.
I'm really thankful to our guest speakers today for conducting this informative webinar with us. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Jayashree. Thank you, Mr. Kalidas, for taking the time out. I hope you have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, Aradhana, and thank you to all our participants.
Nice of you, Aradhana, and good luck to all the participants.
In the meantime, we have had an answer from Sukhbir Man, who says, yes, dampers are available and are being used nowadays. We'll definitely bring more on that to you. Thank you.
Thank you. We will close for the day. Bye-bye.
Bye.